onto Signal in a sense, because, of course, in light of the Signal shenanigans in the US, but also the situation with Apple and the encryption shenanigans over here on that. I thought it'd be good just to remind ourselves of the debate around end-to-end encryption and the effect of the Online Safety Act on that. Now, this is something we've been warning about for many years, but in the course of 2023, Meredith Whittaker from the Signal Foundation was warning and threatening that Signal would pull out of the UK if there was any attempt to force it to turn Signal into spyware. Which is exactly what Apple was being asked to do over the last number of weeks. So we'll start off here. This is a short excerpt from some comments she was making to Channel 4 News in July 2023.
There is no way to create a backdoor that only the good guys can walk through. And what's being proposed here in the context of end-to-end encryption is a backdoor. And we know from decades of history, from decades of serious research, that there's no such thing as a safe backdoor. If the British police can get in, hackers can get in. If the British police can get in, hostile nations can get in. If the British police can get in, Putin can get in, the Iranian government can get in, and others wanting to do harm can get in. So it's really important that we maintain the security and integrity of these systems.
I mean, just to clarify, Putin, the Iranian government, these are not the people we need to be worried about. It is our own governments that we need to be worried about. But look,
and their allies, like the Sixth Eye, the Israel government. As well.
Exactly, and Unit 8200, absolutely at the heart of just about every piece of infrastructure that we have. Look, we have a second video clip here because the person sitting beside her was Damien Collins. And he had been at least chair of the Culture, Media and Sports Select Committee for several years. And he was a major proponent of the most draconian aspects of the Online Safety Act. So let's just listen to what he had to say and how Meredith responded to his comments.
I agree with Meredith on that point. I mean, I don't think it would be safe to say there's a safe backdoor, because once you create it, other people will find it as well. That's why we're not going to ask companies to break encryption. What the regulator would do, I would imagine with a company like Signal, is when the regulator, Ofcom, is creating the codes of practice, they might say to Signal, well, what sort of data do you gather? And if Signal says, well, we don't gather data about people's messages, we can't possibly look at this. The regulator won't say you need to break encryption. It'll say that's fine, but you do have policies, let's say, on legal and appropriate use. How do you enforce those? What do you do?
None of that is specified in the bill, and this is our concern, because we hear things that are sensible like that from people like you, and then we look at the bill, and what is specified is a regime that would give Ofcom the power to demand that everyone in the UK downloads spyware that checks their messages before they're sent against a database of what is permissible to say and send and what is not permissible. And that is a precedent that authoritarian regimes are looking to the UK to set, to point to a liberal democracy that was the first to expand surveillance in the terms of the UN Human Rights Commissioner. This is unprecedented paradigm-shifting surveillance, and paradigm-shifting not in the good way.
So this is a massively important point. Now, you'll note that Damien Collins said that the UK would not be asking companies to break encryption. But since no MP can ever tell the truth, it should come as no surprise that the UK regime did exactly that with Apple. They were absolutely demanding that they break their encryption and provide a backdoor. So her point there was absolutely valid about the power of Ofcom under these circumstances. But here's the thing. In a sense, it doesn't matter how secure the end-to-end encryption actually is, because Signal is, without question, the most secure of every protocol that's out there. The issue here is if the deep state can get hold of one of the ends of the end-to-end encryption, that if they can get hold of one of the ends of the conversation, either through some form of social engineering, as seems to have happened in the United States, or through a device being seized at a border and the storage on that device imaged. And a great example of that is this article in the BBC, because this Israeli company, Cellebrite, was claiming to have cracked Signal's encryption. Well, it hasn't, and it's done absolutely no such thing. What they actually can do is they can read the file format of the Signal app if they can get hold of the physical phone. So they need to have the actual physical phone in their hands, and they need to image the storage of the phone in an unencrypted state. So they've got to get you to unlock your phone, and then they can read the file that Signal saves on the device, which is not the same as getting
Remote.
cracking and getting remote access.
Yeah.
So the real risk here is the security of the device that your application is running on. And that actually is evidenced by this article from Le Monde, because France brought in legislation also in 2023, making it lawful for the French police to remotely control phones and laptops to enable the recording of a person of interest, to switch on cameras, switch on microphones. Now, Apple did something to try to mitigate that somewhat, because they now put a green dot on your device to show whether there's the microphone or the camera is enabled. And so they do something to at least attempt to give somebody an indication that something's being used. But nonetheless, that I think is the major risk, is that the control of the endpoint. And I think even if this journalist hadn't been brought into the US conversation, however that happened, there are still some questions to be asked about using personal phones for those types of conversations.
Yeah, I would say very risky, very risky.
And just to finish this segment on Ofcom, I just wanted to mention this. Ofcom has fined the provider of OnlyFans. This is a company called Phoenix International Limited, £1.05 million for, they say, failing to accurately respond to formal requests for information about its age assurance measures on its platform. So OnlyFans, as you know, pornographic in many cases, and they're effectively requiring facial recognition and other mechanisms for identifying people's ages as a form of digital ID required here, and that's what this is all about. So companies submitting to Ofcom regulation are required under the Online Safety Act to respond to statutory information requests from Ofcom in what Ofcom describes as an accurate, complete and timely way. And they say that in June 2022 and in June 2023, they asked for information from Phoenix on their age assurance measures, that the ones that they had on the OnlyFans website. This included asking how OnlyFans was implementing age checks, and specifically about the effectiveness of OnlyFans third-party facial recognition technology and facial estimation technology. And Ofcom said that in January 2024, Phoenix had informed them that it provided incorrect information about the challenge age set for its age estimation technology. And so an investigation was opened. They found that Phoenix had not reported this issue for 16 months, and therefore they were in breach, and that resulted in an incorrect submission. They imposed this penalty of £1.05 million, which they say is going to be passed on to the Treasury. So this money goes to the British government, but that includes a 30% reduction, because they would have had a bigger penalty if they hadn't complied and they hadn't basically accepted the findings and held their hands up to it. So, this is another example of the power that Ofcom has been given as a result of this piece of legislation.